Well, wasn't that a great song reminding us how God always keeps his promises?
And I think that the disciples in our story from earlier forgot about that.
And they also forgot who Jesus was.
Yeah, so they were in this really scary storm, and it must have been a really scary time for them because they didn't know how to save themselves. They didn't know how to get out of it. They were probably afraid that they were going to sink in the boat.
And that's crazy because it must have been so big because a lot of Jesus' disciples were also fishermen, people who would have been used to being out in storms.
But they seemed to have forgotten that Jesus was with them. They said to Jesus, "Help us, don't you care?" Well, of course Jesus cared. But they seem to have forgotten to put their trust in him, to put their faith in him, to help them. You see, I think what we learn from this story in the Bible is that Jesus is powerful in all situations and no storm is too big for him. In fact, he just spoke and the storm was calm. Isn't that amazing? What a powerful God.
We know, didn't we, that Jesus was there at the creation of the world, as he was the one who spoke the world into being. And so, of course, he could speak to calm the storm.
And even though Jesus' friends had seen all he had done, they still wondered, who is this man? You see, they had forgotten, or they hadn't realised actually, that Jesus was the Son of God.
Well, last week we learned a memory verse. I hope you memorised it. And it goes like this: "Cast all your worries on him because he cares for you."
And that is such a good reminder to us that when we are facing different things in our lives where we feel worried about something, a bit like the disciples felt worried in the storm, actually they can trust in God because he cares for us. Well, this week we have got a new memory verse for us all to learn, and it's from Matthew chapter 19 verse 26. It says, "With man this is impossible, but with God all things are possible."
Can you remember that? It goes like this: with man... No, it doesn't. What does it go like, Grace? Say it again.
With man, this is impossible.
It does say that. So it says, with man, this is impossible.
But with God, all things are possible.
But with God, all things are possible. Can you remember that? With man, this is impossible. But with God, all things are possible. And that was Matthew
chapter 19,
verse
26.
Well, there's a test for you. Let's see if you can remember that. Say it again. It's Matthew 19, verse 26. With man, this is impossible. But with God, all things are possible.
Well, to help us think about what we've been learning today, I have some questions for you. So I hope you're ready. So my first question is, why were the disciples afraid? Do you think it's because they thought the boat would sink? Or because they didn't know who Jesus was? Or was it because they had no faith? What do you think?
Well, they did think that the boat was going to sink, and that's probably why they were initially afraid.
Yeah.
And if they had understood who Jesus was, they wouldn't have been as afraid as they were.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus says, you don't have any faith in me, because if you did, you'd know that I could calm the storm. So it's really a little bit of all three, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right. Well, my next question is, did the disciples need to be afraid? Yes or no? What do you think?
Well, no, not really, because if they understood who Jesus was, they would have known that they didn't need to be afraid because he would be able to rescue them from that storm.
Absolutely. And then my final question is, what did the disciples need to do to stop being afraid? Was it to get better at guessing the weather, to understand who Jesus was, or to have faith in Jesus? What do we think?
I think they needed to understand who Jesus was, to understand that he was the Son of God, and also to have faith in him. Have faith that he was able to do the impossible, because it isn't impossible with God. So this week, it's really important not only to understand who Jesus is, but also to have faith in him and to trust him through all the difficult things that we face in our lives. So why don't I pray now? Dear God, we thank you that you sent Jesus. And not only can he calm the storm, but he can also make a difference to our lives. When we are scared and worried, we can call upon him and he answers our prayers, because with you, all things are possible. Amen. Well, I hope you enjoyed your time this week with Myton Kids on the video. And we hope to see you really soon. Bye-bye for now.
Always amazing, his love will never end. So everybody in this place, celebrate God.